Hello, everybody, and a very pleasant Friday evening to you, wherever you have tuned us in. Thanks for watching another week of Behind the Mic here on ASTV Productions. My name is Jonathan Hodgson, and I'll be with you for about the next hour here live on ASTV Productions and the ASTV Facebook page with another conversation with another great sportscaster. And again, we're really excited about this week's episode. Like I mentioned, going live for the second time. And this week we get to talk a little bit of football and maybe golf and some other things with CT STECKEL from Fox Sports Southwest and Fox College Football. We look forward to diving into the past college football season, NFL free agency, his own background, which is steeped in football on the professional side and on the personal side, and we'll get into other things like his playing and broadcasting experience in golf, his experience covering the Los Angeles sports scene, maybe some shop talk in respect to covering sports on TV and radio and wherever else the conversation might take us. So before we toss to a break and bring in CT on the other side, we'll remind you that since we are live, we're trying out something new this week, see how it goes. If you would like, you can enter the conversation by dropping us a comment on our Facebook broadcast window. And if you are on Twitter, you can follow us at Amateur Sports TV, and there you can tweet at our account using the hashtag AskBTM, and I will try to pick up your comments there. If you have any questions or comments for our guest CT STECKEL, we'll do our best to get them on the air for you. But we're looking forward to this one. Once again, thanks so much for joining us. And before we go to our first break, we'll remind you to catch us online. Visit us at astvproductions.com. That's where you'll find all of our past shows on BTM and all of our other shows and broadcasts here at ASTV. And follow us on Facebook and as well on Twitter. So we'll take a break. We'll be right back with CT STECKEL from Fox Sports Southwest and Fox College Football. And once again, welcome back to Behind the Mic here on ASTV Productions. Jonathan Hodgson back with you and joined now by our guest this week, CT STECKEL from Fox Sports Southwest and Fox College Football. CT, thanks so much for joining us this week.
Yeah, Haji, good to be here, man. Good to be a part of this enterprise that you are creating and dialing up for the people. And excited to talk about maybe some sports that in your neck of the woods we don't talk about a whole lot. So excited to be here with you.
Yeah, and that's something that we were talking about backstage before we went live was the fact that you made me do a little bit extra homework this week covering some sports that aren't usually in my wheelhouses. We're going to deep dive into some football, but we've been in communication with each other for quite some time on a couple of different projects. So this is a show that personally I was really looking forward to, and glad we could finally make it work.
Yeah, I feel the same way. You know, it's fun when you cross paths with good people in this business, and you never know who that might be or how that may occur. But when I knew you were doing this show, and I knew you wanted to go live and talk some sports in that medium, which I love, I wanted to join you and be a part of it. So good to be here on a Friday night.
Absolutely, and there's a lot to get into with you. We mentioned some of it off the open. We're gonna dive in. We're gonna head to the gridiron first. Of course, that's one of your passions in your broadcast work, and of course, as we'll get into later, you've got quite the family background in football as well. But I guess we'll kick it off with some college football talk with this past season. Throughout the entire sports world, everybody's season got messed up and had to adapt in certain ways, and college football was no different. In your experience in your years around college football, how different was this season as opposed to the typical season?
Yeah, it was unlike anything we've ever experienced. All of us are living through that right now, and hopefully getting maybe towards the tail end of that as vaccines roll out and we start to see hopefully a chance to kind of maybe return back to norm. But covering college football this year was unlike anything that we've experienced. And I can take you right to the sidelines in the stadium there in Norman, where OU plays, and they took on Missouri State in their first game of the year. And as a sideline reporter, you're used to being on the field, right next to all the action, with the availability to interview and talk to coaches within a matter of feet. Pre-game, in our live opens, at halftime, obviously post-game interviews. And this year was totally different. We had to be, at least 12 to 15 feet apart. We had to allow for the head coach, Lincoln Riley, and for the players after the game to throw on a headset, to talk to us from a distance. We had to have all of that set up in pre-pro and all the things that you have to do before you go live in an event. And so it was a very big change. We're used to going in on Fridays before games and meeting with the coaches and getting a chance to sit down with the head coach and talk to some of the players and maybe get to practice and just get a feel for what's going on with the program. And this year, all of those, if you will, pre-production meetings were held via Zoom. So we didn't really get to interact with anybody in any kind of personal way. And so not only did it make it more difficult for us to cover that as broadcasters, but I think in essence, you felt like something was missing. I was so thankful we could be out there and we were playing games, but it was not the same experience. And I really hope soon that we return to what we all consider to be normal, where we can get into their world, really tell the stories of those players and coaches well, and feel like in the game, when you want to capture that emotion that you can get, whether it be at halftime or whether it be at the end of a game, in a close ball game, win or loss, be able to return to that. And this year something was different.
Yeah, for sure. And going out on the field with what transpired at the end of this season, with Alabama running the table 13-0, winning the national championship game over Ohio State, who finished at 7-1. One of the things that I picked up from my observation of it was one of the effects was the fact that not everybody got a full slate of games in. So you had Alabama going 13-0, and then you had the other title game participant, Ohio State, going 7-1. And I know there were some that had varying takes on that. What was your view of how things went down this season?
Well, look, I think you have to just categorize it as a completely abnormal year. And so as a result, it's very difficult to look at it and want to sort of pick away at things that you wish maybe you could have changed? Because I think in reality, we were just really excited to be playing college football and have a chance to have a college football playoff. Now, that being said, there is always going to be controversy and things that you can talk about. And there's no doubt, did Ohio State really belong to be there, having not played as many games, maybe not played the schedule that other teams had, and carrying a loss? That's very difficult if you look at it from that perspective to think, did maybe some other teams deserve to be in there? But I think that's part of the, if you will, pageantry of what college football is about. Now, look, the college football playoff is designed for one reason. It is not to crown a national champion. It's to create controversy and eyeballs and ears to watch and listen. That's what it's for. If we really wanted to crown the best team on the field under the most intense pressure and see who performed the best, we'd expand the field to a minimum of 8 teams. I'd like to see 16. And we'd create a way that you can really win it on the field. Winning 2 football games when you're the University of Alabama and you have all of the talent that they do does not, in my opinion, create for us the illusion or the belief system that this really is the crowning of a legitimate champion. So that's how I look at it. So COVID aside, I think that the college football playoff needs some serious restructuring and we need more teams in it. That being said, in a year where all of us around the world faced COVID and we lived through a pandemic, I don't know about you, but I was excited to just be able to tune in and watch a college football playoff game and then for sure a national championship. I'm glad we played the games and got there. But yeah, the college football playoff needs some serious restructuring, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. And in that championship game, Bama head coach Nick Saban takes home his personal 7th national title, passing the legendary Bear Bryant. How do you put in perspective the run that Nick Saban's put together?
Unprecedented, he has decided that he is going to run a program that is about his players and his system. And I think what is so incredible is that he continues to win national championships each year with a different offensive coordinator, somebody who is moving on to a better position in their careers, they believe, whether they become a head coach or whether they become a coordinator in the NFL, and they just continue to roll every single year. And so what he's made it about is the system. He's made it about the discipline, and he's made it about the recruitment of players that you just can't match up with on the football field talent-wise. And when you have a chance, which you do in college football, to set up a system and establish, if you will, just a foundation rooted in hard work, and rooted in just this belief that this is how we do it. If you want to join with us, great. And then all of the great players around the nation, all the 4 and 5 stars, the blue chippers, if you will, are working to try to get to a place where Alabama has you on their radar. I mean, they get to pick their players. There's no recruiting going on. They get to just show up and say, do you want to come to the top 30, 40 players in the nation? And just in a sense, just continue to amass talent. So I think what he's done is remarkable. You can't take anything away from him. We're going to get into it and talk about it, but I'm a coach's kid. There's things throughout his career that I think Nick Saban, as he looks back on, would maybe look and go, I would have done that differently. But all of us mature and grow as our careers unfold and as we're husbands and dads. And we always want to get better and improve. And he's found a formula right now that works. But make no mistake about it. When you have better football players than your opponent, you're going to win more football games. And so while he's a great coach, about 80 or 90% of the time he steps on the field, he shouldn't lose.
Yeah, absolutely. And another program that has really emerged in recent years, the last couple of player cycles as a real powerhouse is, of course, Clemson University, and their current star QB, Trevor Lawrence. His 3-year run with Clemson has been spectacular. 90 touchdowns against 17 interceptions, 2 title games, 1 championship, going in as a top prospect in the 2021 NFL draft. Of course, you can look at his size, his physical stature, but what in your analytic brain, what is it about Trevor Lawrence's game at Clemson that has made his run so special?
very simple. The bottom line is this. When you have the intangible that he does to lead so effectively because you're willing to be so open and so vulnerable with your life, your teammates want to follow you. And so that's who Trevor Lawrence is. If the Jacksonville Jaguars select him number 1 overall in the NFL draft, which I expect them to do, they're going to get a young man who not only wants to win, he's a fierce competitor, but he's going to make an impact on his teammates' lives. That's what he does. And so I think Dabo Swinney or anyone who's ever been around this kid would tell you that, yes, he's got all the physical skills and talent that you could have. He's got the arm strength. He's got the field vision. He's got the ability to get outside and make plays. He can tuck it and run for 12 or 15 yards and pick up a third down conversion when you don't expect him to do that. But what he does off the field transcends onto the field. And usually we say that reverse, but because he's such a great teammate and such a great character individual off the field, on the field, his teammates would run through a wall for him. And so because you get that in energy and that passion every single time that Trevor Lawrence takes the field, you get something that's special. And so I think he does his homework. I think he understands film study. I think he understands who he is as a quarterback and usually takes what's given to him. It's very rare to see him out there, in a sense, watching the field and trying to study the field and not knowing exactly where to go with the football. It takes a great scheme and a great defensive coordinator and coach to kind of get him off balance, and we saw Alabama do that. But bottom line is this, the kid is going to make his mark in the NFL, and it's going to be because he has the physical skills, but more so it's going to be because of the human being he is off the field. He'll impact that community. He'll impact that locker room. And I expect him to win a lot of games in the National Football League.
Couple of things on the NFL, if you don't mind. You're coming to us from just outside Frisco, Texas, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, we live in Prosper. We're just north of Frisco. Frisco is about 20, 25 miles due north of downtown Dallas. And, of course, where Jerry Jones has built his brand new, if you will, the Star mega practice facility for his team. And it's a beautiful retail complex as well. And all of the high school football teams in Frisco get to play their games at their indoor facility that seats close to around 8,000 to 10,000 people. So it is a beautiful facility, a beautiful center, and we live just a stone's throw from it.
Now, I'll tell you a personal experience of mine. I believe it was 2006. I made a trip down to Dallas to take in some Rangers games at the ballpark in Arlington, which I know they're not there anymore. Still one of my all-time favorite ballparks. But at the time I was there, it was the ballpark in Arlington, and the Cowboys were still playing up in Irving. And the new Cowboys Stadium at that time, I believe, was just a giant hole in the ground. And now I think about what's gone on there in that sportsplex, and maybe that's something that you can shed some perspective on. Is you have the ballpark in Arlington still being utilized for other purposes, but now they have the Rangers have a brand new ballpark. And, of course, the Cowboys with Jerry World next door as well. What's that? What is that like, having sports Disneyland right there in Arlington?
Yeah, it's incredible. I think sometimes we probably take it for granted, to be honest with you, and we should not. Look, Haji, it gets hot down here, man. I don't know if you know that, but it gets really hot in Dallas, Texas. I'm talking about, like, you walk outside and within seconds, your entire world is thrown upside down when you get outside of the AC, because that air conditioning, man, you need it down here in the summer. So despite the winter storm we just went through down here, which I would laugh because you guys obviously wouldn't think 6 inches of snow and a couple of 0-degree days are that big a deal. And our whole world got thrown upside down. But look, they wanted to build a ballpark that could be retractable and they could close a roof and put some air conditioning into it. And it made sense. I talked to a good friend of mine who is very tied into the Rangers organization, and he would tell me that literally dozens of people per game could suffer from heat stroke just going to a game. I mean, they had to have medical crews on the standby in the middle of the summer for people to make sure they were safe and healthy, and if they needed attention at a Rangers game. And so now you don't have to deal with that. You can close it up in the summertime, and you can get a beautiful Major League Baseball game in 72-degree perfect weather, and you can escape the heat. And then what Jerry Jones has done is simply taken the game to the next level when it comes to stadiums and architecture. I know the new stadium in Los Angeles, where I spent a lot of time, and originally my family is from, is a beautiful facility, and I look forward to getting in there for the first time myself. But when you build something like AT&T Stadium, you are not building it to house sporting events. You are building it to make a statement. And he has done that. And he has changed the game on what it is like to be not only just a spectator and a fan, but a participant in an event and something bigger than just yourself. And I got to tell you, every time I walk in there, whether it's for a Cowboys game or a high school state football championship game or for a monster truck rally because somebody in my family wants to go, or whatever it is that's going on, it just takes your breath away. I mean, I've been in it now, I don't know how many times, it's got to be close to 40, 50, 60. I don't know. And every time I walk in there, I say to myself, this place is incredible. You just stop and you look, you find something new every time because it's so breathtaking and it's so expansive. And truly, if you don't sit in the first row or section, if you will, the first maybe 25, 30 rows, you find your attention just going up to this big screen because you've never seen an HD television like this in your life. You don't even watch the action in front of you because this video jumbotron is so clear, so big, and so attention grabbing that you find yourself not even watching the game in a sense, the people on the field. So I will say this, we went to a friend and I went to the NCAA tournament there a few years ago when they held the regional semifinals and regional finals. So basically the Sweet 16 and the Elite Eight. And we were like way back. I wasn't even in the my buddy had a ticket. He said, last second, you want to go? And we were so far back, you couldn't even see what was going on down there on the little basketball court. We just watched the whole game like we were watching it off the TV, and you loved it. You felt the crowd, you felt the energy, but you were so far away from the basketball court. You just watched the TV. So we're very lucky. I tell my kids all the time, we live in a part of the country where sports are important, where it's a value, it's a part of life, and it's a part of structure here. It's kind of what we do. It doesn't mean you have to do it to have a full life, but it means that if you do, it's going to be rich. People are passionate about it.
And that's a great segue to the last topic I want to hit before break is the atmosphere around high school football down there. Mm-hmm. Again, referencing the one time that I've been down to Texas and never been to a game, but driving by these facilities for high school football down there that would be, mini me of the Canadian Football League up here. Just what is it? And you mentioned, the environment where sports is a value down there. Yeah. What is it that makes high school football particularly such a passion and something that matters so much down there?
Yeah, it's a great question because if you live here, you experience it and but if not, you kind of, I don't know. I don't think you question, but you want to know what is different about Texas high school football and Friday night lights and this sort of pageantry that exists around the sport. And it's very simple. I can boil it down to in this exact fashion. Community is big here. Community means something. You don't just kind of root for the same team and then go back to your own worlds. People here truly feel like if you're from the city or town that you live in, that there's an identity to that it's part of who you are. You don't just, oh, well, I live in Colleyville. Oh, well, I live in Rockwall. If you live in these communities, I mean, it is written on you. It's part of who you are. And so what happens on Friday nights is the entire town shut down and people go to celebrate who they are and their young men and they're young women who are on the sidelines as cheerleaders and as trainers and the other things to create what makes Texas high school football special, which is this ability for a community to come together and rally and be a part of something that's truly special and different. And I think when you drive around Texas, you know, I'm very fortunate. My in-laws are great people. They have a home out in New Mexico. And so we'll pile our 4 kids into the vehicle and we'll pull a trailer. We'll head out there for a week at a time at different points of the year. And you drive through West Texas and you're in the middle of nowhere. And then you come to these little towns like Post, Texas, and they have a turf field stadium that cost millions of dollars to build. And they have grandstands that go up both sides. And you're like, where are these people? Like, how many people can fit in the stadium? Who lives here? But in Post, Texas, 2A high school football, it is the deal every year on Friday night. It brings them together and it gives them an identity. And then when they show up at AT&T Stadium at Jerry's World, like we just talked about, and they have a chance to showcase their town, I'm telling you, everybody packs up and makes the drive to Arlington to get there and be a part of it. So it's about community. It's about how people come together. It's about celebrating a sport that we all love. But it's something, again, I used this term earlier, that's bigger than yourself. And just having a chance to experience it and cover it as a broadcaster. You know, I've gotten to cover sports at all different levels, and we'll talk about that. But I can truly say that there's probably nothing more fun or more special than covering the high school state football championships in Texas. We've had some incredible games finishing on Hail Marys. We've had some incredible storylines of Jerry Jones' grandson leading his team from Highland Park back to a last-second victory. We've had so many incredible things happen on the football field, but it's what it means to the kids and the coaches and the community. It's the most pure essence of the sport, bottom line. And here in Texas, it means a lot to each and individual community when their football team takes the field.
That's a great note to take us into our first break. When we come back, we'll get into your family background in football, like we've been alluding to, maybe some of your experience at a couple of big athletic schools, and maybe talk a little bit of golf when we come back here on the other side of our first or second break here on Behind the Mic on ASTV Productions with CT STECKEL. And welcome back to Behind the Mic here on ASTV Productions, as well as on the Amateur Sports TV Facebook page. If you'd like to interact with us here live this evening, you can drop us a comment on Facebook or tweet us at Amateur Sports TV. Great first block visiting with CT STECKEL about all things football in Texas, and we'll start off on a similar note again. In the second block, we made mention a few times, CT, in that first block about your family background in football. And of course, what we're referring to is, of course, your dad, Les STECKEL, spent 20 seasons in the NFL as a coach and was the third head coach of the Minnesota Vikings back in 1984. What did you pick up from your dad in terms of your knowledge of the game and learning that passion for football?
Well, you know, the truth for our family is that football just isn't a game. It was a lifestyle. It was you know, a way in which you grew up connected to something that was really fun, but also could bring some serious lows. There was difficult moments for sure. As a coach's kid, we use the term you're hired to get fired, which means that, every couple of years you're packing boxes and saying goodbye to friends and having to move potentially across the country because the team that your dad was a part of wasn't successful enough. But when you get to a certain level in that profession, you're able to find new opportunities. I was really proud of my dad. He went through a very unique thing. He worked really, really hard to establish himself as a football coach. Spent years and years at the beginning in the college level, basically making nothing, just trying to survive, living in garages. I saw the first home my mom and dad lived in Boulder, Colorado, and it is definitely not the size of the house they live in now. And so that being said, it was kind of, as the firstborn son, something that I kind of carried with me, looking at my dad as a man who I love and respect and is kind of a hero that, to see him his career and then ascend to be the head coach of the Minnesota Vikings in 1984, and then to watch it crash and burn in just one season and kind of blow up. As a 6-year-old, I was at the time, you have no idea what's going on around you, but I'll say this to you, Haji, to watch him the next season after being fired, rebound as the offensive coordinator of the New England Patriots. In theory, he was the passing game coordinator, wide receivers coach, quarterbacks coach, call plays in Super Bowl 20, where they played the Chicago Bears and lost that football game. But to go from being fired as an NFL head coach to calling plays in the Super Bowl, if you will, 10, 11 months later, I thought was a real testament to what handling and facing adversity looks like, to what true character looks like. And so I learned a lot from that as a kid. And then to see him just continue to work as hard as he did for years and years and years, hours into that profession that he did, and have a chance to then be the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans again, Super Bowl 34, where they came up 1 yard short against the St. Louis Rams at the time when Steve McNair was the quarterback and threw a little slant route to Kevin Dyson that came up short. So when that happens, you kind of get into a place in your mind where you think to yourself, this is a guy, my dad, who's put in the time and invested, and how proud of him to have earned that right. To have that type of career. So it was a lot of fun, a lot of ups and downs. When you get fired as a staff, it's not fun because everybody in the family, again, has to peck and move. But it was part of the gig, and I think brought our family together and created a lot of loyalty and a lot of bondage.
And the one thing I keyed in on when I was learning about your dad this week was I looked at some of the coaching staffs that he was on.
Yeah.
Under head coaches like Tony Dungy, Jeff Fisher, Bud Grant, Wade Phillips, and just kind of humanizing that. One of my first thoughts is, what were the dinner table conversations like?
Oh, they were fascinating. You can only imagine, right? I mean, it was amazing to be around such men with such storied careers, and to be able to experience what their lives were like. And Haji, look, this is live TV, so we got to do this real fast. Give me 1 second, because my computer just said that it wants to run out of gas on me. And so I got to make sure that doesn't happen and we don't go flying off the air. So hold on 1 sec. Let's make sure we can make this thing happen. Hold on. Okay, good. We got some power battery back and some source energy. So I had it plugged in here. I wasn't even looking at it. And then I got this little notice up in my top right screen that said your MacBook is about to sleep. I thought that's not going to be good. We're going to lose the whole enterprise here. So, yeah, great question. I guess when you get to experience people who are very famous, right, and have a very high profile on a personal level, what you learn is that people aren't perfect. Sometimes perception is not reality. And you get to a place where I think you start to have a compassion and a grace for people, and that in your older age, you see them potentially different than maybe you did when you were younger. Look, the NFL is a business, and the coaching profession is cutthroat, and it is heated in the locker room and in coaches' meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays after losses. It's not easy. And so I say all that to say that men like Tony Dungy and people like Bud Grant, they had a tremendous impact on my dad's career. And they were men that at each point in my dad's career, I know he learned something from, and I, in my own personal life, watch them. And I think you kind of take the positives from people, and you kind of store them up and you say, I want to be like that guy in that moment and respond that way. Or, what he did right there to motivate that player, I'm going to file that away, because if I ever coach one day, I want to motivate my players that way. But I think you also have to get to a place where you can show them some grace and maybe forgive. And I know that sounds maybe different than what the answer you were looking for was, but things happen in life, and people aren't always at their best. And so I think that's part of what I learned. And then I'll offer one other note. When you are living in the pressure cooker of coaching in the NFL, you kind of live in this tunnel or in this hole where you don't really get to experience life. And it's been really fun for me as I've gotten older to look back and see what some of these coaches are able to do with their lives once they get out of the profession, because they actually get to be normal and they get to actually live. And watching my mom and dad for like a decade plus after, my dad's coaching career, be the president and CEO of the Fellowship of Christian Athletes and travel around and make an impact on people was so huge. So to get to see what Tony Dungy does with his foundation, or how Bud Grant makes an impact in the community in Minnesota, or how Bill McCartney has just made such a tremendous, if you will, positive influence and impact on the people in and around Boulder, Colorado. I think those are the things that I see as the lasting influence of a coach. Yeah, the wins and losses and those moments in the locker room are cool, but I think it's what they're able to do in the big scene or big scale long term that I've learned the most from with these coaches. Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic stuff. And Bud Grant, by the way, has a little bit of a tie for Canadian football fans, of course.
Correct.
Played and coached with the Winnipeg Blue Bombers in the CFL. So getting back to a little bit of your story, we talked in the first block about the atmosphere around sports and football in Texas and around that Dallas Metroplex area. But you also had a couple of different experiences outside of Texas. Well, one was a different spot in Texas. Going to school at Vanderbilt University and Baylor, two big-time athletic schools. What were some of the takeaways and the lasting memories of going to school at two big time programs like that?
Yeah, I just feel blessed, to get to have experienced two unbelievable schools, one in the SEC, one in the Big 12. I feel very grateful and lucky that I was able to be part of a college golf program at Vanderbilt, where I had tremendous teammates and long-lasting relationships that still exist to this day. In fact, we were just all texting each other on a group message yesterday about getting together this coming, hopefully, year for a reunion, kind of in a 20th, if you will, season, since a lot of us kind of graduated from college. And so, how'd you look? It's really unique to get a chance to play Division I collegiate athletics. You have to work real hard to get there, and there's a lot of things that go into that. And there's also a lot of adversity that you face when you get there. And so I think part of the journey for me was just working on what the most important factors of it was. Sure, we always want to shoot low scores and we wanted to get better. There were times where I was not very good and I had to put in a lot of work and a lot of energy to try to improve. And I think sort of that tenacity was built in me during those college years. But when you get to go to an SEC school, experience the academic, if you will, rigors of a place like Vanderbilt, you kind of come out of it thinking there's not a whole lot in life that maybe I can't persevere and get through. So I just feel super blessed to have had that experience. And then I went to Baylor, and really what surrounded my transfer there was just a change in the golf coach at Vanderbilt, and also just kind of a desire within to just have a different experience. I maybe tie it back to my childhood growing up. Every 2 to 3 years I was used to moving. And so the thought of staying someplace for 4 or 5 years was kind of, I don't know if it was daunting, but I felt like I was ready for a change. And I got to a place like Baylor, and it's unlike any school I've ever been to. As a man who takes his faith seriously, it was a place where I saw a different, if you will, value system, and what was really important. I remember sitting in my first class, and before we went to take this quiz, the teacher literally stopped and wanted to pray for us. And I thought at first it was a little different and unique and out of my comfort zone. But as I got used to it, I realized just, if you will, the presence of people around Baylor, and the hearts they had for people, and the fact that they weren't afraid of their faith and afraid of being, spiritual. And so that to me left a lasting impression. I had great teammates. I had great coaches. I had great experiences on the golf course. But when I look back on my time at Vanderbilt, I wouldn't trade it. In fact, people say, well, why'd you transfer? I just tell people it worked out perfectly. I had 2.5 years at Vanderbilt. I had 2.5 years at Baylor. I have friends from both schools for life. And I'm very blessed to have gotten a chance to play Division I college golf and experience those moments. I'm a lucky guy.
You mentioned playing collegiate golf at those two spots. What place, and of course, you fast forward to now where you're a PGA teaching pro and a golf coach. At that point in your life, how far did you think golf was going to go for you, or what was the master plan for golf back then?
Well, listen, Haji, if you talk to my college teammates from my freshman year at Vanderbilt, playing professional golf, they probably thought CT's not going to get there or do that. But I had a very fun experience after I graduated from Baylor, playing professionally and making a run at trying to make the tour. And I think in those moments, you have some really successful events and tournaments, and you feel like maybe this is something I can do. But over the long haul, you realize that it's a tough grind, and I know several people and I have friends who've chased it for 10 and 12 and 15 years trying to make it to the PGA Tour and playing all of the mini tours. And it just wasn't something that I wanted to pursue. And so I got my foot in the door at Fox Sports Southwest and West and Prime Ticket. We'll talk about that. And I got into broadcasting full time. But as I got to a certain point in my life where I realized that I was going to have kids who were growing up, who were going to have their own sporting events and all these things that I wanted to be a part of and I didn't want to miss. And also kind of having a yearning deep down for the ability to try to have an impact and influence, maybe the way that I'd seen my dad and my brother who is a coach now, and my uncle, who was a longtime college football coach. I felt like I could give something back as a teacher and coach. And my game is golf. That's the game and the language I speak. It's the one I played at a high level. And so I've been teaching now for a long time here in Texas, and proud to say that I get to respond and answer to guys who are professionals and 8 or 10 collegiate players at the time, and probably 24 high school players here in the North Texas region. And not only do I get to teach them the fundamentals and the skill sets and the mindsets and the game plans that we have to have on the golf course to score a ball and be effective, but I think I get a special place in their life to try to be a mentor and a coach and a positive impact and influence. And I wouldn't trade it for the world. So I think my playing career set me up and established a platform for me to be a coach. I didn't have the game that a Brooks Koepka or a Dustin Johnson or a Justin Thomas have. But I do think that the good Lord created me with a way to be able to communicate and motivate young men and some women to play the game at a high level. And so that's what I'm doing now. So double dip in the broadcasting world and teaching and coaching in golf.
One thing I think about when I think about you being, of course, steeped in football, and that's your major media, your thing right now, but then I think about golf and the two of those together in one life. And you talked about before the intensity that goes into football, and then I think about the solo setting of playing a round of golf, and the different atmosphere around it, and and everything everything that's just seeming like so polar opposite about football,
Right.
football and golf. So was that a good balance? Was that and is that a good balance for you to have the two opposite experiences?
No, it's a great question. I grew up with a dad who was a football coach in Marine, as we've established, and he said that you're going to play one individual sport and one team sport. And the team sport for our family was football. I mean, every Sunday when Dad had a game, it was the singular event, and it literally was out in front of every decision that we had in our life. The season, when it came to football time, is what ruled the day. And even though my mom did a great job to keep the balance, and we tried to be as normal as possible, football ruled our world. And what I found in golf, and this is what I loved about it, because I played other sports. You know, I played high school basketball, I played baseball, I played a lot of soccer. I did all these things as a kid growing up. But what I found in golf was the ability to go out and see my own personal investment and the hours spent pay off. And I like that. I like the ability to play other team sports and rely on teammates. And then I enjoyed playing a game where it was on me to get the job done. And so, you know, it's funny now because I look at my life and I think you're right. When people think of golf and think of football, they think of two opposite worlds, like you said. But I do deep down believe that there is a certain mental toughness that players in the game of golf and players in the game of football have to have. One, requires some physical toughness as well, because when you get hit on a football field by a dude who weighs 260 pounds running as fast as he can at you, it does not feel good. But I think that there's something about the nature and the mindset of players in both games that is actually very similar. And I think that when you get to a spot where, as a coach and a teacher, you're able to kind of speak two different languages, one a football language and one a golf language, I think it keeps me, in a sense, always excited about what's coming next. Because when I get to go back to covering football, you know, I haven't maybe spoken that language in a while. And so I'm re-energized to do it. And then when I get away from teaching the game a little bit and get 2 or 3 or 4 days off, or maybe a couple of weeks at a time stretch, or maybe even a month or two at a time, depending on the winter down here, when I go back into it, I'm re-engaged about it. So up about it. So I feel like there's similarities. There's a lot of polar opposites, but that's kind of how the journey for me has gone, and I wouldn't change it.
And one last comment before we go to our next break, around the Masters. One, I'm curious if you've had a chance to get down to Augusta National and take that in. And two, a comment on the upcoming 2021 tournament. Again, like we talked about in football with the unusual year, the next year's tournament coming up just a few months after the 2020 tournament took place in November.
I think it was all weird for us to experience the Masters in November. It just didn't, you know, in a sense, feel right. But we got to see it and we got to watch it. It felt different without the patrons, if you will, because we can't call it the gallery there. And, you know, all of the azaleas blooming and just kind of the, if you will, entire event pageantry and spectrum that we're used to seeing. But that being said, it was fun to watch. And I was really happy to see Dustin Johnson, a guy who's overcome a lot in his own life, you know, rise to the occasion and win that tournament. I think it's going to be really interesting to watch this year's event. I mean, we're setting up for some incredible storylines. Jordan Spieth has been playing really good golf over the first couple of years here in months, I should say, in 2021. And he is a guy who loves Augusta National, is a wizard on those greens, and can really play well, and be fun to see him get in contention. I think a guy like Justin Thomas is used to being in the winner's circle these days. He's winning a lot of golf tournaments, and the one he wants the most is the Masters. Will Rory McIlroy be able to get his first green hit and complete a career Grand Slam? So there's some great storylines setting up. I'm really excited for it to come around. It feels to me like spring officially arrives when the Masters arrives. So I'm fired up about that. But I will say this. I'm a lucky guy. I've said that before, and I've had some life experiences sometimes that I sit back and go, wow, like, did I deserve that? Probably not. how do you express your gratitude and your thanks? So funny story. I was blessed enough to have a man fly in on his private jet to a regional airport and pick me up. And we traveled to Augusta, Georgia. We landed there in a private plane, like I said, and we were picked up by a van from Augusta Nationals with the Masters logo on it. And I got to spend 2 days at Augusta National playing the golf course when I was about 29 or 30 years old. So just over probably 10, 11, 12 years ago. And we got to play in November, which is ironic because that's when they just played the last Masters. So I was very familiar with sort of course conditions that time of year, even though I think they put a little bit more into, this past fall and winter season to get the course ready. But listen, I've played a lot of high level competitive golf, right? I mean, as a collegiate player and professional, like you feel the pressure sometimes, and you know what dealing with nerves is like. Playing Augusta National is the most nerve-wracked I've ever been. It's weird to tell you. We had so much fun, but every shot you stand over, you've seen it 100 times on TV. You knew how the putts were going to break before you even walked up to the green, because I know on 14, if you're back left and the pin is middle back, that puppy's coming off that shelf so hard. And I knew exactly what was kind of happening around me before I actually experienced it. It was an out-of-body experience. I'll never forget it. I understand why every player in the game of golf, whether you're a 40 handicap or you're a professional, dreams of playing there. And I'll never, ever be able to thank the people that made it happen enough for me. It was an incredible experience to see the clubhouse, the locker rooms, the crow's nest, all of the cabins that we stayed in, and the memorabilia on the walls and in the rooms from Bobby Jones, Byron Nelson, hearing the stories at night from the members who were around, just talking about the club. And for someone who loves the game of golf, it was the trip of a lifetime. And I'll never, ever, ever probably be able to do anything that comes close when it comes to playing the game of golf and experiencing such a special place as Augusta National. So I got there. I was lucky. I rarely talk about it because some people just won't make it. They won't get there. But I can check that box, and I'm very thankful for it.
That's amazing. We're going to take one more break here, and we'll be back with one more segment with CT STECKEL. And in our final look, we are going to zero in on some broadcaster shop talk. So we'll see you on the other side here on Behind the Mic on ASTV Productions.
Why go solar? Solar is better than ever. Our revolutionary design and inverter equipment with the latest in solar panel technology for the ultimate in-home and business security. That's right, I said security. Grid security and security of your home are linked. Fortify your future today with a battery backup system. No maintenance, quiet running. Did you know in Manitoba, grid-connected, off-grid, and battery backup systems are 100% right off in the year you purchase for any company or farm? Do you want to back up your internet, keep your tills running, and the lights on? We can install a system that is right for you with battery backup fully capable of taking on all those essential loads and keeping you running. When you call our experts at Evolve Green, ask about getting your free energy audit today. Call or email today to find out what system works best for you. 1-866-5EVOLVE or support@evolvegreen.ca. Also, be sure to check out our website at www.evolvegreen.ca.
Once again, welcome back to Behind the Mic on ASTV Productions. Jonathan Hodgson back with you alongside CT STECKEL this week, football host and sideline reporter for Fox Sports Southwest and Fox College Football. It's been absolute blast here, CT, these first two blocks, and we are running a little bit over time. I hope that's not a problem for you.
No, you know me, I'm long-winded, man. I don't come up for air much. That's why the producers in my ear are always telling me to wrap and get out, because unfortunately I have the gift of gab, but I've really enjoyed this, and we'll keep it short and sweet from here on out. But no, we're in no rush. We're good.
Hey, I'm in no rush either. That's one of the great things about the setup here on ASTV is I like to, you know what, I like to be respectful of the guest time. If I tell them I'm going to have you for an hour, I want to have them for an hour, and I like to learn how to hit my time slots and stuff like that. But we also do have the freedom to, you know what, when you got a good one, you can go an extra few minutes, and we definitely have a good one here this week.
Trust me, my wife and 4 kids are fine with that. They're not in any rush to see me back downstairs. They get plenty of it, so we're good.
Oh man! So in this third block, we haven't had a chance to talk too focused about your sportscasting career, and that's definitely something that I wanted to do for our aspiring sportscasters or fellow sportscasters who watch us here on Behind the Mic. And a lot of times I ask when I get into the shop talk portion of the show, a typical question for me is, about the beginnings of the career and how you got into it. And about 95% of the time, the answer is, well, because I wasn't a good enough player. And we've talked about your playing golf in college, and you've turned that into a professional coaching career in golf. But I'll give you the softball. How did it start for you?
Yeah. I look back on those days at Fox Sports West, and we called it West 2 at the time. Now it's Prime Ticket. And, man, I'm so thankful for them. It was such an incredible group of people, from Mike Conley and John Hefner, and so many of the executives who were there who gave me a chance to be a part of something that I didn't have any clue what I was doing when I showed up and got into it, because I did not have a journalism degree. I had not done radio or TV at the time. I just had a deep-rooted belief that if I was going to be around the game of football, or be around the game of golf, or be involved in sports broadcasting, that I would be able to experience a job and a career where maybe it felt like I never went to work. And so that was what my goal was. So through an old player that my dad coached, a guy named Tom Ramsey, who was a great quarterback at UCLA and then played with the New England Patriots, who was a lead analyst for them at the time. Made a few calls, got me in the door, and I showed up as basically a glorified intern. It's a PA job, paying you about $10 an hour, bringing pizzas and waters to live event crews, logging tapes, running this tape from downtown Los Angeles all the way over to an office in Beverly Hills or Century City. I learned all of the language of TV. I watched the people who were the best at their jobs doing it in either live or pre-production moments. And I got to take it all in. And I put together my own reel, going out with reporters and photographers. And after they did their story, I would have worked hopefully hard enough to where they wanted to give me just maybe 5 minutes at the end of the day to stand in front of the camera and act like I was the reporter, and then go back to the shop and put together my own features and my own stories. And I put a reel together, and then one specific story, and I showed it to some of the coordinating producers. Brad Zager, who now runs all of really the big enterprise at Fox Sports, was one of our producers, and they liked my work enough to start airing some of my stories in the high school football game of the week at halftime, when Petros Papadakis moved on to bigger and better things, and now he's a big name in the world of Fox and college football and high school football all across the country from Southern California, played at USC himself. When he moved on, I became the high school football game of the week sideline reporter. And so things just started to progress at a young age very quickly. And next thing you knew, I found myself on the college football sidelines, covering the Lakers, covering the Clippers, covering at one point the San Diego Chargers, just beat reporters for, if you will, MLS play like the Galaxy and Chivas USA, USC football in the heyday of Pete Carroll and Matt Leinart and Reggie Bush, and UCLA football. And it was an incredible time and an incredible experience. And what is so cool is that today I still have all of these relationships and people that I care about a lot. And, like I said, I got my foot in the door. I worked real hard. I was the first guy there and the last guy to leave. And I asked a million questions. And as a result, I think of putting in the time and then having something to offer, really probably a heart that cares about coaches and players and sees it from a different perspective. They saw that in my storytelling and in my reporting and in my anchoring, and the rest is kind of history.
And what was that like as you referenced your time in Los Angeles with FSN West and Prime Ticket? What was that like being able to cover teams like the Dodgers, the Kobe Lakers? What was that like being able to, one, go into those venues like Dodger Stadium? For a baseball guy, that's top of the list right there. And also the personalities that can frequent those places at Lakers games and the home plate seats at Dodger Stadium. What was it like being able to go to those places and be around those teams for a job?
I don't even know how to describe it to you other than to say you're completely humbled, and you're so, in a sense, just aware of the magnitude of what those venues and those teams and those franchises and those players and coaches mean. And so, it was big. And I think one of the things I probably had to my advantage was that I grew up with a dad who coached in the NFL, right? So I'd been around players and coaches and athletes who are famous. So I never had the awestruck, like, walk into the room and like, oh, there's Kobe, or, oh, but I will tell you that when it came to the broadcasters who were in these venues calling games, I was awestruck, because that's what I wanted to emulate, and I wanted to try to offer to be a part of the business. And so I'll tell you a great story. It was probably about 2 or 3 in the afternoon. I was in the offices, and John Hefner, our coordinating producer, who's now the executive VP or executive producer really at Fox Sports West and Prime Ticket there in Los Angeles, about to be renamed here to Bally's Fox and West and Prime Tickets. But long story short, he calls me into his office and he says, CT, I need you to head over to Dodger Stadium. We need you to get over there and help out with the crew tonight. And so I thought, okay, cool. I'll roll over. So I go over there, and Brad Zager was the producer. And he said to me, CT, you are going to be upstairs today in the booth with Vin. And if he needs anything, or anyone there needs anything, you're the PA on the show. Don't screw it up. And I said, what? I said, I'm going to sit in the broadcast booth with Vin Scully, like 5 or 6 feet away, as he calls a game. I get to go experience that. And my mom grew up in Southern California, lifelong Dodger fan, would literally fall asleep at night as a tomboy. She was a sports fanatic. She's probably the best athlete in our family, and she would listen to him call games on the radio. And here I was, her son, going to get to experience that in the broadcast booth at Chavez Ravine. And it's those moments that you don't take for granted, and you're so thankful for. I got to meet guys like Mike Tirico in Staples Center when he was calling games for the Lakers, and I walked up as a young reporter and said, hey, what's the best piece of advice you could give me? Because I really want to be good at this. And he said, be the most prepared guy in the room. You are very prepared for this show tonight, Haji. And so when you do that and you put the time and the energy and the effort in, it allows you on live TV or on live platforms to just be yourself and have the knowledge and the information to be the best broadcaster you can be. Nothing that happens will surprise you. And so, covering the Lakers and covering the Dodgers and covering USC in their heyday prime, winning national championships, those things I worked hard to have an opportunity to be a part of the team. And I was thankful for that. And yeah, you don't take any of it for granted. So who thought I'd get to see Vin Scully in person call a game? Who thought I'd get to be 10 feet from Bill McDonald or Mike Tirico, or some of the best broadcasters that ever get to be around the Lakers, and in their prime and in their moment. It was awesome. And I'm very thankful.
Man, that Vin story just turned me into a 10-year-old kid all over again. That, and like I said, I'm a baseball guy, so that's obviously that's my guy right there. And one of probably the best comment that I ever received in the play-by-play portion of my career, which may come back someday, is our first baseman for the summer league team I was calling for was from USC. And the one day on the bus, he says, "John, grandpa, his grandpa had slowed down, and he said, you know what, nowadays, grandpa plans his days around the Dodger games and Vin, and he falls asleep at night listening to Vin. This summer, he falls asleep listening to you." Nothing to do with how good I was, obviously not in the same stratosphere, but the thought that there was somebody out there that listens to Vin, and for 3 months, one summer, they were doing the same thing with me. Yeah. And that was the coolest thought.
Well, Haji, here's what I think, that story says, is that we have a chance in this profession to make a profound impact on people. We get to tell their stories. We get to call their games. But I think what we get to do is be human. We get to be that voice maybe that they hear on the other end when they so badly want their grandson to make it, and they're in that season of life where they don't know how many years left they have, or we just get to be that person who one day they pop in that old tape, or I guess nowadays they click on that link, and they get to relive their heyday in high school or in college when they actually were achieving things that they dreamed about and worked so hard for, and then show their grandkids, and maybe your voice or your face is a part of that. I just think it's about long-lasting influence and impact. That's kind of what I've tried to base my life on, and the decisions and choices I make. And so what you got to experience there is exactly what you're talking about. Vin Scully now is legendary. The way he looked at me in that booth, the way he talked to me, made eye contact, the way he asked questions about my life. When I started to share about my mom and being such a big fan of the team and him, and it meant something to him. He was genuine. He literally spent, and I'm not exaggerating here, this is a long amount of time for someone you've never met, who's some 25-year-old kid that you don't even know who he is before he walked in the door. He talked to me for 5-6 minutes, like genuinely asking questions and listening. He was never in a rush. Anytime that I've ever been approached by anyone, I've used that as a standard for how to treat people. But just like you said in that story, we get a chance in this profession to make an impact on people, and hopefully we never take that for granted,
And that's been a common theme through the majority of, the established sportscasters that I've had a chance to meet or befriend, some of them, or just have on this show for an hour of their life, is the best are always like that. They're sportscasters, in my experience, are some of the most accommodating people I've ever met. They've all been the low guy on the totem pole starting out. They know the grind. They have no problem giving a few minutes to somebody on the way up or helping out on a project. And honestly, that's why this show started, because I wanted to, as part of rebooting my broadcasting career, I just wanted to talk to some of my old contacts, and that's how this blossomed. But you mentioned before, a couple of minutes ago, the note you got from Mike Tirico, and that goes that's pretty. That goes along pretty well with something that I got one time from Jerry Howarth, who did the Toronto Blue Jays radio for 36 years, and called 2 World Series championships alongside Tom Cheek. And one thing he would tell me when I was young was John, your work in and coming in the play-by-play context, he would say that, John, your work happens between the games. Yeah. In your prep. That's your work. When the red light goes on and when the first pitch is thrown, now you're just showing your work.
Sure.
And so there's rules of thumb with play-by-play prep with, something like 3 hours of prep for an hour of gameplay.
Right.
I've been in Jury's booth before. The amount of homework strewn neatly around his booth always terrified me because I knew I couldn't get to that level. Yeah. But I always like that outlook of your work between games or between shows. That's your work, and once we go on like this, now you're just showing your work.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head. When I walk away from a broadcast, I probably use anywhere from 25 to 30 to 35% of the information or the prep and research that I've done. It's just how it works. You're not going to get everything in the show, but you get the best parts in. You use, if you will, the things that you have that relay or help tell the story of the game or whatever's transforming in front of you. And then you get to a place where you are okay with that. When I was a young broadcaster, I would do all this prep and all this work, and I'd drive home going, oh, I didn't get that in, or gosh, I was so frustrated, I didn't get a chance to say that, and then you kind of realize that no, the game starts to tell its own story. And you use the information that you have to help, if you will, expand that and help the viewer or the listener in on that. But yeah, you are only your prep. As a broadcaster and as a voice and a face out there. If you haven't done the work, you could be exposed. And that's our worst fears, I think, is being in a position where you look as if you don't know what you're talking about. And so it makes you put the work ethic in and build it. And then you get to a place where you realize after you've done hundreds and hundreds of shows that you don't have to force anything. And when the moment presents itself, offer that to the audience and the viewers and the listeners. And then be okay going home knowing that you got a bunch in your pocket for the next game and for things that are going to come in the future. So, yeah, I love that part of it, and it sounds like you do too.
I want you to tell one more set of stories for our viewers here this evening, because I know there's a lot of people out there that will enjoy this one. And then I have a couple of quick hitters for you on the way out. And then we'll wrap up this segment. But another well-known sportscaster that you've been blessed to have a relationship with is Brendan Burke from the New York Islanders and the NHL on NBC. And you two go back a ways and have had some experience together. Where did that relationship come from, and what have you two given to each other in a professional context?
I can't tell you how happy I am for that guy. I am such a huge fan of Brendan Burke's. He's such a good friend. I have to be telling you the truth when I say that he's an equally good dad and husband. Because he's a darn good broadcaster. We all know that. He can call a hockey game or anything that you put in front of him. But he really puts his family first and has a tremendous amount of character. And I'm very proud of him for that, and hasn't allowed all of this new attention and these new things that have come in his life to take away from what's most important for him and his priorities, and that's his family. But that being said, what's fun about the world of broadcasting to me is all the different people that come into your life and how broadcasting crews change, how you get new partners here, there, and season to season things can be different. And I think that's fresh and kind of can be fun. I don't know what it'd be like to work with the same people for 20 straight years because I haven't experienced that, and I'm thankful for it because I've met a lot of good people. So Brendan and I were put on a national package together for FSN years ago. and we got to call Big 12 and Conference USA football games. And when I first met him, what struck me was this: he was so honest. He was willing to admit that, you know what, I'm coming at this from a standpoint where I haven't talked a lot of football, called a lot of football, been a hockey guy, I've done other sports, and, I'm going to lean on you. And I said to him, I'm here to help, I want to be a good team member. And as I got to know him and the type of man he was, you wanted to help even more. And so we traveled the country for years together, calling games from, Marshall and Huntington, West Virginia, to El Paso, to, parts in between. I mean, we spent time together in Waco, Texas, and Norman, Oklahoma. And you just, you build deep bonds and relationships with people. Some of the best times as a broadcaster are those Friday night dinners before you do a football game on Saturday afternoon somewhere. And, lots of people are tuning in to watch, and that whole deal is going to go down. But those sort of intimate moments on Friday night can be really special. So we formed a bond there. And I'll just share this about him. When he first started with us on our crew, he was still calling minor league hockey in Utica, New York for the Comets. And I know that they're a minor league franchise there, the Canucks. And at the end of the day, I just kept encouraging him because I really deep down believe that he was that good. If he could make a collegiate football game sound the way he did, and it wasn't even a primary sport for him, I knew that there was a place for this guy at the highest level of broadcasting in the game of hockey. And it only took 1 year after he got that Islanders job to wake up and be calling national games in the postseason. And look, I'm no expert. I'm not going to predict. You're a hockey guy. I'm not, okay? I'm a Nashville Predators fan. I pull for the Stars because you live here in Dallas. I'm not going to act like I can talk the language. I mean, I know what offsides is, okay? I know what's going on. I can watch some penalty kills happen and give you a little bit of commentary. But listen, I don't know who's going to replace Doc. I don't want to predict it. But I will say on your show, that if he doesn't have a chance one day to sit in the top chair, whoever's watching isn't paying attention. I don't know if anybody calls a better hockey game than Brendan Burke. I'm being serious. And I don't know what you think, Haji, but he's that good. And he's young. I mean, he is young. He's still getting better. So he's a great dude. Ben Leiber was our analyst. He was a former all-pro linebacker, played for the Chargers and the Vikings for a year. He's got a great broadcasting career going for himself with Fox and the Vikings there in Minnesota and K-Fan and all the radio prowess he has. Chris Withers was an excellent producer we had on that crew. We had so many great directors, so many great guys from the truck that I still keep in touch with. But Brendan is a special talent. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm just a football guy from Texas, but I think he could sit in the big chair one day and call Stanley Cup finals, and why not?
That's high praise, and we'll be watching him for sure. And like you were talking about you two guys having that relationship with each other, I think that's so important to not only have bigger people that you look up to, but it's also important to have people that you can do it, that are kind of on your level, that you can do it together with. So that's a really great story there that I thought the viewers would enjoy and would learn from. Just a couple of quick hitters before we get you out of here. And once again, thanks so much for the visit. It's been just an absolute pleasure, and I know we went a few minutes over, but I think it was worth it. Couple of quick hitters. We talked about a lot about your different accomplishments and your big experiences and everything you've been able to do in sports and in broadcasting. So at this point in your life and in your career, what goals remain?
Good question. I think I want to continue to tell stories in such a way that they have a lasting impact on people, that we continue to kind of reach to find those stories that kind of pull your heart and tug you a little bit. There's only one Tom Rinaldi, and he's just been such a trailblazer for a lot of us who love to tell those human interest stories. But I think I want to continue to do that and put that sort of at the forefront of who I am and kind of the mark I have on people. I want to get to a place where I look back and have said, I've covered some majors in the game of golf at a high level and had maybe a seat on those broadcast teams that would be sort of cool experiences and moments to take in. I think it would be really fun to stand on the NFL sidelines, and work, especially potentially, in a scenario one day where my brother is a head coach in the NFL on one of those sidelines. He's currently the tight ends coach for the Tennessee Titans and trying to continue to not only make his players better and just leave an impact and a mark on them, but, I think has a goal deep down to be a head coach. And I think that could be a fun experience, to cover a game one day with him on the sideline wearing a headset, leading a team. But Haji, can I just be honest with you, man? Like, my biggest goals are to be the best dad and the best husband I can be. I know that for some people, they don't want to hear that all the time and they think that that's kind of cliched, but I made a choice in my life to not be that guy who wakes up in a hotel room 4 or 5 or 6 days a week, who doesn't live on an airplane 50, 60 times a year, if not more. I wanted to make sure that when I'm all said and done on this earth, and hopefully move on to a different place, that my kids and my wife, feel like I invested in them more than maybe anybody else. So yeah, I have goals in the broadcast profession. I want to cover majors in golf. I want to maybe stay on the sidelines in the NFL. I want to experience some really cool things, but I think when it's all said and done, if my kids, at my funeral have something good to say, and my wife as well, then maybe I've done a good job.
And what final words would you give to the aspiring sportscasters that might be watching you today?
Yeah, it's very simple. Just never say no. Say yes to every opportunity. If somebody wants you to show up at 6 a.m. and interview somebody on a track team somewhere in the middle of nowhere and set all the cameras up and set all the lights up and get it done, so when they show up at 7:30 you can conduct the interview, say yes. If they want to send you up on a scissor lift over a high school soccer field, call the game. If they want to give you an opportunity to go out and cover a lacrosse team and you don't even know what lacrosse is, say yes, do all the research and go get it done. If you constantly put yourself in the arena and keep giving yourself an opportunity to learn and grow as a broadcaster, you can achieve your goals and get where you want to go. And so if there's nothing beneath you and you're willing to put in the hard work and burn the candle at both ends, this is a profession that is going to reward you. And the last thing that I'll say is this. All of us have things, I think, either as men or women or as broadcasters, that we think, I'd like to change that about myself, And the truth is that we can kind of live in our own insecurities when it comes to that. And I have gotten to a place where I think one of the best pieces of advice I could give people is to kind of embrace who you are. If there's things about you want to change that you think would make you a more effective person and a more effective broadcaster, go for it. But don't worry about sometimes what you see when you look in the mirror, or how you think you sound, or how you think you present or how maybe you think other people perceive you. Confident and bold in who you are. Be you. People are looking for personalities. When they call us talent, that's a silly word, because I think the people in the production truck and the people running the cameras and the people who do things that I don't know if I could ever do are probably way more talented than I am. That's how I look at it. But if you never say no, and you're always willing to learn, and you're willing to embrace who you are and not allow insecurities to take over, you'll get to experience some things that you probably never thought you would. And so that's kind of my advice to young broadcasters, is to step into it and to work hard, and to never say no.
That's some great perspectives for sure. Well, CT, we'll we'll wrap up this block, and I'll come back for a solo wrap up that'll take just a couple of minutes. But wanted to take one final chance to thank you for coming on this week and pulling the curtain back a little bit. It's not just this 1 week where we sit in the seat and talk sports for an hour. This was reaching out, and again, we'd had contact before, but this was reaching out and sharing the pitch of the project, and would you be a part of it? And right away, it's yes, come on, let's go. And sit down on Monday for a technical check, and I was just gonna say, you know what? Can you hear me? Can you see me? Cool. And it's, hey, do you want to do a pre-interview? So it's sitting down doing a 20-minute pre-interview, and you asking about my process and my background and everything, and being in touch throughout the week. And so you were, and like I said off the top, I set a record for homework this week. But for not only the conversation, but for being an active part of what I do this week, and for being a friend. I could not thank you enough for what you do, and what you did this week, and everything you're saying. You're living it. So not to get too deep, but thanks so much. This has been an absolute blast.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it too. I admire you. I appreciate who you are. And I think what's so cool is that we have these opportunities to kind of capture moments. We do that in live TV. We do that in storytelling. We do that in live games and event production. But you never know who's going to come along and make a mark on your life. And, I just think this is a profession and a business where if it's not about you, then you have a chance to be successful. And I really enjoy interacting with other people, building relationships, and wanting to share in their successes. And you are a big one. You're on your way to doing some great things. I'm excited about that. And I look forward to the next time when you and I can connect, whether it's on a live medium or not. I look forward to it, and I'm always here to help. So please don't hesitate to reach out, okay?
That sounds great. Thanks again. That's CT STECKEL from Fox Sports Southwest and Fox College Football. One more break, and we'll come back and we'll tie a bow on the show really quick here on Behind the Mic on ASTV Productions. And once again, welcome back one more time to Behind the Mic here on ASTV Productions. Jonathan Hodgson back with you one more time to wrap up the show. Great chat with CT STECKEL from Fox Sports Southwest and Fox College Football. All things football, college, high school, a little bit of NFL, and of course some great shop talk there at the end with some golf mixed in. That was, as I said to CT, one of the most enjoyable episodes we've had to date. So thanks again to him, and thanks to you for spending part of your Friday night with us on our second live episode of Behind the Mic. You can catch us every Friday at 5 Pacific, 8 Eastern. ASTVProductions.com is where you can find our live shows, as well as our playlist and the live shows and playlists of all our other shows here on ASTV. You can also find our broadcasts on Facebook, and you can follow us on Twitter. And of course, you can find our past shows with our all-star list of guests we've had here on Behind the Mic. We'll be back next week. Have a good show lined up for you next week. You can follow me on Twitter if you like, @HodgySpeaks. And I'm talking about our upcoming shows throughout the week. So until next week, and we get a chance to talk again, Jonathan Hodgson for my guest, CT STECKEL. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again next Friday here on Behind the Mic.